Today we will be having the second. Yes, today we will be having the second session of the Global Summit Quality Excellence and Sustainability. And yeah, my name is Setula, and I will be your host and moderator for the day. I'm joined by my colleague Intirenla, who will be available on chat for any assistance required. Thank you so much to each and all for joining our session yesterday, and to those who are joining today, thank you so much. We will be hearing from another amazing speaker on today's session. Yesterday, we had heard from Carlos Conejo, who gave a very insightful presentation on the topic. We have more powerful topics scheduled for the rest of the week, followed by a panel discussion on the last day, that is on Friday. So I hope that everyone will join us on all these sessions and not miss out on this powerful knowledge sharing platform that we are having currently. We have some more participants joining in. So as we wait for them, allow me to introduce the hosting organization and our speakers and the event itself. So to start off with, we are GSDC. We are known as Global Skill Development Council, and we are a vendor-agnostic international credentialing and certification organization that has had over 90,000 certified credentials, find credibility in the top emerging and skill-based certifications. We have over 70 plus certification portfolios, and these are recognized by leading MNC organizations. GSDC is also proud to be accredited by ABI-CB and ANSI, and we have tied up with over 100 plus global universities. Our offices are located in Singapore, Switzerland, and USA. We have partnered with over 50 plus global training organizations that add value to the training programs accredited by GSDC. And if you'd like to learn more about our services and our programs and modules, you can have a look on our website. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn to learn more about our services. You can get directly in touch with us, and we'll be happy to connect with you. We all know that this event has been organized in collaboration with IQA, and we are so honored and happy to be in association with them. So in order to introduce Indian Quality Association, I call upon Ms. Shobita. So she is part of the steering committee of IQA. So Shobita, you can have the time now to introduce IQA.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good evening across the globe. IQA, or India Quality Association. I'm hearing an echo, or it's Setulu. If you could take care of that, please. Okay, thank you. It's based on fundamentally 6 pillars that we are working around. It's around competency development, where we look at how quality professionals are able to build their competency across the globe. What are the necessary skill sets that they should be possessing, the soft and the hard skills, what certifications they should be looking for, and where do they reach out to. From a standards and model support perspective is the second pillar, foundation pillar, where we're looking at standardizations across various tenets that we have when we say quality, right? There are multiple facets that we look at. So how do we standardize all these models and bring together a comprehensive approach is what we are looking at as part of the second pillar of India Quality Association. We are looking at building a robust knowledge management across all the technical as well as process related artifacts and knowledge repositories that will help not just this generation of quality professionals, but in the future generations. We are building case studies that will help learn from all the lessons learned, or look at new practices that are coming up into the industry. Through our 600 plus volunteer workforce that we have across our association, we are collecting all this information to create that knowledge repository. Now, while doing that, obviously, we want a quality culture that we want across our organizations, be it IT, non-IT, manufacturing, healthcare, all these industries. So we are looking at how we can, from a singular unit, support this entire quality journey for those professionals on the ground, along with managing the portfolios and helping them step up to the occasion. Thereby, we give them a platform that they can share, learn, evolve, and adopt successful practices from the contributions across the industry. So this was established in 2017, and we are in the 6th year of our execution now, and we are collaborating with GSDC this year so that we have our annual event in collaboration with them and reach and enrich ourselves and learn from all our esteemed panelists and our esteemed speakers for each day. Thanks, Setulu.
Thank you so much, Savita. That was a quick brief about IQA. If you want to learn more about IQA, you can have a look on their website. The link is shared on the chat box. And again, a big round of applause, a virtual round of applause to the team as well. Moving ahead, a big appreciation to our official media partner, World Press Hub. Thank you for always being with us and always supporting us. Here, I'd like to introduce about the GSDC certification portfolios. We have the ISO and quality and governance certifications available, the topics that we are diving deeper into for this summit. So if you are interested, please do have a look. All the details will be mentioned on the website. The link is shared on the chat box. And the GSDC certifications holds lifetime validity and is globally recognized, governed by an authoritative governing body, and validates the certificates. The course contents are all curated and designed by our subject matter experts who are academic affiliates from Yale, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, and Wharton. So if you are interested, do have a look. A unique feature about GSDC certifications is that you get access to all our global summits and events, workshops, boot camps, and such. You also get invited to be a speaker on the panel in order to broaden your expertise. Also, on top of that, we provide a complimentary upgrade to any of the GSDC certificate you may already have. So if you are interested, please do have a look. We will be happy to connect with you for more details. The links are all shared on the chat box here. A quick appreciation to our volunteer team, the ones who have supported us throughout this journey. Thank you so much for your support and for voluntarily coming and accepting our program invitation. If any of you here would also like to be a part of the program, then do leave an email to my colleague Matt. His email will be shared on the chat box. So if you would like to be a part of it, we always welcome new people to onboard, and we will be happy to connect. And yes, thank you again to all the volunteers here. Just a quick information before we head to the main part. We will have a quiz again, just like yesterday. Whoever had joined yesterday, you will get to know the winner of the quiz after the session. So stay with us until the session. For today's quiz, we will be doing it after the presentation of the speaker, and the exam certification voucher, which will be sponsored, will be of ISO 27001 worth $400. So if you are interested, do stay with us until the end of the session to participate in this quiz. Now, without further ado, allow me to introduce our speaker for today. We have Jonas Menesglo, the CEO and co-founder of SQ. He studied in industrial engineering at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology with a focus on user-centric IT security and QA. His company SQ is a Karlsruhe startup focusing on AI-based UI automation. So parallel to his work with and in startups, he is the organizer of the community's software testing, Karlsruhe and automation advocates, where thousands of testers share content every day. Jonas, we're so happy that you were able to make time for us. Thank you so much again. Just before you start, housekeeping for the participants that we will have a Q&A session for 15 minutes with the speaker right after the presentation, and we will take the questions on the chat box. So request everyone to please save your questions until then. And yes, Jonas, if you are ready, you can take your time now. I'll just stop sharing the screen here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just let me share my screen real quick. 1 second. All right. So yeah, thanks for inviting me. You should see my presentation now, I guess. Awesome to be here. Glad I was invited. Really exciting to talk about, especially a topic which I'm quite familiar from my studies with, about data privacy in the era of new and emerging technologies. I think it's couldn't be more up to time right now because of all the developments with ChatGPT, with all the rapid developments in artificial intelligence. And there's so much to uncover what this actually means for our daily lives. And not only for our daily lives, but also for our data, which we share every day, which we use every day in the web. And I'm happy to tell you more about like what this all means for you. Maybe a bit more about myself first. So who am I? I was already introduced, but maybe a few words more. I'm based in Karlsruhe, which is a small city in Germany. This is a map of the of Baden-Württemberg, a part of Germany. Actually, this is also where our company is located. So I founded AskUI, which is a UI automation tool. Basically, we are a team of 14 people right now working here on our vision of a better world. So we are also like very heavily researching on AI. So for us, AI is a tool for automation, but it brings a lot of different kind of challenges as well. So I'm happy to dive deep into there as well. As already mentioned, there are also a few communities which I lead and initiated, or we at the company also do. There's the Automation Advocates, which is a Discord community. We organize a lot of events as well. By the way, we are always looking for guest speakers. If you ever want to have a talk presented to a broader audience, I'm happy to chat. Also, we have a meetup group called Software Testing Karlsruhe, which is more of an international group right now. And yeah, we are sharing talks about mainly software testing, test automation in general there. So this is kind of an off-topic talk from that sense, but I think data privacy is a topic which all of us affects. Other than that, I'm also a speaker and moderator at a few events, mainly test automation, software testing. Maybe you've seen me there already. Yeah, and also if you ever want to chat with me or reach out to me, have any questions, please feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a chat. All right, so let's dig a bit deeper into the talk itself. So what will you actually learn today? When I was researching on this talk, I actually found a lot of stuff happened in the last few years in the space. And for me, it's really important to bring you some kind of awareness to how important data privacy is actually and how it all affects us. There are different kind of challenges with it, but it wasn't like today is the time where it's the most important of all time. And this won't change in the future. Data privacy will get more important every day where we live by, because there's so much data in the web laying around, which can be used for whatever reasons with you don't even know what it's used for sometimes. And it's really important that we are aware of what can happen and where our data is stored. Also more on new technologies. What kind of technologies are used? How do they process data? How are they transforming our lives? How did the history look in that? And then also towards the current state of data privacy. So what regulations are actually in place. I found a very nice place where you can actually check on all the data privacies. I want to dig into that page a little bit later. And also go through a few regulations. I know we have a very international audience, so there's a lot of different kind of regulations. It's super confusing sometimes, but hopefully I can uncover a bit of it. Also key challenges, what kind of challenges are there when accessing some data privacy problems, together with some practical advice. There are a few tools out there which you can use. and also like more about the importance of actually taking action and doing something with your data. Maybe you already took action in the past, maybe you don't care about your data right now. Me, for myself, I am aware that there is a problem, but I never took really that much action on it. So it's for myself, even it showed that there is a need for being more on it. And maybe to start with that, with all these new technologies coming up, I'm not sure, there's this privacy paradoxon, which basically describes the fact that everyone, if we ask, like here in the audience, if we would do a poll, everyone would be saying, I'm aware that data privacy is really important. I care about my data. But on the other side, the data shows that more and more people share their data actually on web and are less aware of how it's used and care less. So that's called a privacy paradoxon, that you actually think you care of your data, but actually don't by sharing it everywhere in social media, for example. Yeah, maybe we can dig a bit into the importance of data privacy. So I was researching, I mean, every one of you probably heard about ChatGPT right now, which is this large language model where you can basically, it's a chatbot with which you can communicate, and it's really useful for a lot of different kind of tasks. You can ask them stuff, it comes up with code, it helps you build stuff, and it can also write certain kind of text, for example. But also there are a lot of challenges with it when it comes to data, because it was actually trained on a really huge data set, and this data was scraped from the web, and it could be that there is private data in there, which are happening to have some data privacy concerns with it, and still we are not sure like what is processed there, and we even cannot tell because it's like kind of a closed system, and that's one of the reasons why, for example, Italy banned ChatGPT due to privacy concerns. If you were not familiar with that, there was a breach where on March 20 this year, actually quite recently, where they leaked information or the conversations users of ChatGPT had with the chatbot. And you could see all those kinds of information laying around and use that and read through that, which is super confidential. So for that reason, Italy, it's up for discussion if it should be banned or not. I think probably not, but we need more regulation in the space concerning the data privacy there. Another breach which was out there was this breach of Chick-fil-A, I think it's called, pronounced, where actually also recently where a lot of people customer data got leaked. So we have to like consider what kind of data is here leaked. So it's email addresses mostly and passwords for logging in, for example. And with that comes typically like names, birth dates is also kind of part of like data, like privacy data or data which is really important that we don't share it. And yeah, so that shows basically that even major companies cannot be trusted completely with our data, although they seem like to have like a huge amount of employees and working on that. And still there is a way where people or where data breaches happen. Why is that? Because we have like a lot of new innovations every day. So in our daily lives, as I mentioned with ChatGPT, there's artificial intelligence coming up. I guess last year was the year of the blockchain, or the year before, where we tried to decentralize a lot of information and putting stuff on blockchains. And not only crypto, also like various use cases, ticketing systems and stuff like that, where stuff is stored in wallets and then decentralized. Also, a lot of data stored there, and a lot of scams actually happening in the space as well. So very concerning development there with all the scams. But let's not dive too deep into that. Then IoT devices. You all connect to IoT device, Internet of Things, every day. Basically, we want to connect everything which is out there to the internet, which has this huge advantage that we can communicate within like through different kind of applications all over the place, and we can access the internet, all the information which is stored there. It also has a huge downside. And this downside is basically that it can be hacked, and information stored there might be not that safe as we think. So, for example, I have this device here on a car. If you think of Tesla out there, Tesla is basically a software company. It's making cars. They are making cars, hardware, but they see themselves as a software company. And with software companies, they also process a lot of data. They can be remote accessed. They are updated through the air, and that is great from a technological standpoint. But it can be also very concerning from a data standpoint, because what data is stored, how can it be accessed, what is actually happening if the device or the IoT device is hacked, or if you think more on the home devices, smart home, also a field where, for example, refrigerator have cameras now, or there's security reasons, security stuff, and if it's not tested correctly or not secure enough, we don't know who can access stuff which is stored there, or who can access those cameras. And I think there's a lot to solve in the future. Another technology, biometrics, are more and more used. Also, your fingerprints, for example. So biometrics is basically your it's a unique identifier for you as a person. So it can be fingerprints, it can be your eyes, it can be your face, even with face unlocking. So which stuff which looks unique for you biologically. Yeah, the most famous one is probably fingerprints. And fingerprints are heavily used everywhere for unlocking stuff, even like in devices. So we use also face unlocking. But no one really thinks about all the consequences with like storing that. We kind of think that it's safe, that they know what they are doing, and there are a lot of regulations. But without those regulations, if we're not aware what kind of regulations there are, people could actually just store plain fingerprints on your phone, and then if it's hacked, they have your fingerprints, which should not be a thing. And another technology, the last one I want to mention, which is heavily improving, but we don't know yet what it means for our daily life, is quantum computing. So quantum computing is basically a new way of building a computer. Instead of like 0 and 1s, like a two-sided system, we can now have like multiple states where we compute, which exponentially increases the amount of computation power which we have, or which we will have. And this also means that there will be a lot more computing power to hack systems, to build systems, which is great because we finally can simulate stuff which wasn't possible before. We can simulate worlds, even maybe build way better artificial intelligence out there, but also more hacking power, more brute forcing enabled. And maybe some security systems out there which are right now in place are not made for that kind of power yet, and the technology evolves faster than the regulations. If you look at it from a historic standpoint, innovation was, by the way, always the driver of our economy. So it's great that we have innovation and all these kind of technologies. So I just looked at this graph here. It's for infrastructure, but it's true basically for any kind of innovation out there. So what it shows is before the year 2013, basically like the amount of years on the x-axis, and then it shows the GDP per capita. So basically some kind of economic value, you would say. And what we can see is, so there's a global average and there's the highest for all countries, and the country which was the highest, and then on the bottom there are those infrastructure inventions. And if we have like a look on the way back, we have like temples, canals, water supply, stuff like that, which is like basic infrastructure. We see that innovation, first of all, rapidly increased the speed of innovation. So we then had gaslighting, railways, telegraph, electricity, airports. It's all like infrastructure, but basically you can think of it with AI developments as well, with mobile phones, with the stuff with upcoming. I just talked about blockchain and all this kind of stuff. And you can see that the GDP is actually rising quicker and quicker, which means that we have way more economic value. And also we like to think about it that automation, for example, it's like a bit off topic, but automation, for example, can help in building a world where economic value is created just, or enough economic value is created in this world where no one has really to work. It's kind of a very long-term vision, but if we look at it, I think it's possible, and then everyone has the chance to work freely. But yeah, what this shows is basically that innovation is the key driver, and we shouldn't be concerned too much about that we need it, like, but also there's this challenge with data. And I want to show this challenge here. Just do this real quick. So what this graphs, I've brought here 2 graphs here with the new challenges. On the left side, we have the amount of data stored in this world. And on the right side, we have the amount of data breaches out there. If you just look at the left side, both of us are from Statista, you can look them up. It's basically the data volume in zettabytes. And 2010, it's not too far long ago. Like I was still studying back then, but basically we had only 2 zettabytes stored in total data. And in 2023, we are already at 120. So it's growing exponentially. And it's expected to grow to 181 zettabytes in 2025. So just in pure data volume, which also means that more and more providers are storing privacy-related data from you. And there are more and more surfaces which can be used for attacks. And needs to be secure for breaches. It's just a statistical thing that if there is more data stored and more surface area to attack, that there will be more data breaches. And we can also see that on the right side. So if we look at the amount of data breaches, there's like on the x-axis, there is the year from 2005 to 2022. And then there's the number of data compromises and impacted individuals. And I was really surprised by looking at this chart that back in 2005, even before the 2010 on the left scale, we only had like 157 data breaches or data compromises. And it grew rapidly. So there's this, on the right side, there's this grayscale, which means individuals impacted in millions. And if you look at it, there was in 2016, I'm not sure which data breach it was. There was this huge effect on it that almost 2.5 billion people, individuals, were affected by a data breach, that their privacy data, that's like a meaningful percentage of the world population affected by a data breach. And I think we are not safe from any of that. So yeah, it's really hard to see, or really concerning to see those data, like how affected we really are. And I will later go to a website called Have I Been Pwned, which is basically a place where you can check yourself or your email address for being like being part of a data breach in the past. All right, but first, before we move there, I have this, which I found, which is basically, I know we are all from all over the world, so I also wanted to show you a world map of what kind of regulations are there actually. So we've learned now a lot about how technology evolved, how it's a driver of our economy, and that there are a lot of data breaches and a lot of data stored and a lot of challenges coming with it. But what kind of regulations are there already in place for that? So it's actually, that's the current state in 2023, there is 71% of all countries in this world have a legislation. 9% have a legislation in draft, which basically means it's not active. 15% are countries with no legislation at all, and then 5% is no data on it. And maybe we can just jump into there. So to see, so I think you're still probably seeing only my slides. Let me. Oh, I want to share new the soup. Okay. Now you should be seeing my this world map, which I just showed. So let's have a look, maybe. So maybe first of all, we can have a look at the United States. You can click on it and see here, okay, electronic legislation, blah, 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 cybercrime, and then we can check into that. For us, it's data protection and privacy laws. So for this legislation, what we have is the Privacy Act of 1974. There's another one in California, which I will talk later to it. But here we see that there's actually pretty nice data on it, that there was something in place, and that they were having a thought of it. If you look more into the African region, there's a lot of countries which have stuff in place, but Sudan, for example, Libya, if we look into those countries, there is actually no legislation on anything, which means if you are a business doing, or if you are making business there, or are an individual which goes there and shares private data, basically there's no rule that your data must be handled privately. They can just do whatever they want with it. So I mean, it's really interesting to see, because if you happen to move there and there's no regulations, they mean they just don't care about your data, or maybe they care, or the businesses care, but at least there's no regulation on it. Other countries involve Papua New Guinea, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, for example. Yeah, and so maybe which one I will also show is like Germany, where I'm from. We have a lot of legislations, maybe too much as well. So what do we have here? We have the GDPR, which I will shortly show as well, General Data Protection Regulation. By the way, I'm not an expert in all of those kind of legislations which are out there. It's just too many to uncover. If you want to have a look, just go there yourself, and then you can just go there. There's for India, for example, I think a broad audience is probably from India here as well. Information Technology Act 2000 and the Personal Data Protection 2019. Which is actually completely outlined here, so you can read through it yourself and see what's in place, which I find really, really useful. All right. Oh, perfect. Now it works. Right. I said about GDPR. So let's jump into that. It's one example for legislation which can be in place. Basically, what is it? It sets rules for how organizations handle personal data of EU citizens, and it was introduced quite recently. Don't count me on the year. It was, I think, 2019 or 17. I would have to check. Or even before that. Well, it's, you can Google that. But anyways, so I was actually still studying when it was introduced as well, or just starting my professional career. And I remember that there was this huge fear of, oh, wow, what's happening here? Every company has to introduce that. I was participating in a few part-time projects where we then had fear, okay, we cannot do a website anymore because we have to implement that and this and so on and so forth. In the end, it wasn't too bad. We still have the cookie banners now because of that mainly, but that's another topic. I think it solves, basically, there's a reason for it. especially if you look at all the developments. But what does it mean? So I actually copied that graphic from the official GDPR site. It's a EU site. What can happen for a business which uncovers it? First of all, basically it's for any company who's doing business in Europe. So if you don't have a seat in Europe, and it's also only for companies, not private, not for individuals, it's only for companies doing business in the EU, not Europe, but in the EU. And they are companies which try to collect or process any private data which fall into those privacy regulations. Companies would pay fines up to 4% of the turnover if they breach it, or 20 million. It depends. So it's pretty expensive to not be according to those laws, to be honest. If there is a breach, the company must notify the authorities within 72 hours. Must be reported, otherwise you're up for some fines. Then increased territorial scope, as I mentioned, applies to any company processing personal data of EU citizens, regardless of location. So you must know if your business trying to grow internationally, that's also one challenge we had. You must be aware of the regulations or the legislations which are in that country you want to move towards to, not the one you have your seat in. Consent matters. This was the fact or the reason why there was all these cookies banner. Then after that, explicit content must be provided in intangible and easily accessible form. And there must be always a way to opt in or opt out of some data. That's why there's this opt-in, opt-out option if you go to sites from the EU. Right to access and portability. Basically, this means if you are an individual and contact a company within the EU and want to have or want to know what kind of data they store, the company must share that information with the individual. So if you, for example, happen to are in contact or using any service from an EU company or which falls, if you're a EU citizen, you can do that and then just ask the company, hey, I want to know what kind of data is there, and then you receive a list, what kind of personal data they have or private data they have, and then you can also request that it is deleted. Yeah, so breach notification, I talked about that, and then privacy by design. Data protection from the onset of the designing of systems rather than a retrospective addition. This refers to if you design systems, privacy should be always on top of your mind, should not be something you think is a nice to have, but within the system design, it should be always like one of the key areas which should be thought through and implemented right away. Right to be forgotten, that's also, I mentioned already that next to the right to access, that you have the right to get data erased or deleted. And then mandatory data protection officers, which means that people have to appoint some certain persons, or companies have to appoint some persons within their organization which are aware of all that and see themselves as the main go-to person for all those kind of questions, and which are responsible for implementing all that or making sure you are compliant with those regulations. Another example I want to show is the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, which is in California, or it was introduced in January 2020. So it's by the way, it's like, there's the date when the GDPR was introduced in May 25th in 2018. So not too far off, it was right in the middle. Yeah, so where's the difference? Basically, the CCPA is also for profit companies that collect personal data on California residents on more than 50K, have also annual revenues of over 25 million and earns 50% of annual revenue from California residents data. It's quite a difference because the company has to be a bit larger. For European or EU companies, it's a bit, at least for small companies, it's a bit more challenging because they fall under GDPR even if they are only two persons. If it's like a startup or a very small company, they still have to be compliant. Otherwise, they would be up for some fines. But overall, who is affected? Businesses, service provider, third parties, and California consumers. Pretty similar to the EU, but just for California. What data is in scope? For the CCPA, it's personal data that is sold for monetary or other value considerations. Releasing, disclosing, transferring, or even renting of the data. It's a bit unclear what is meant with just like basic storage of data. If it's not used for any value. So you just, for example, login details. I'm not sure how they handle that, but first of all, it's more about data which can be actually used and made money from. GDPR is way more strict here. They just say personal data of any type, whether you just store it for login or you try to sell it or whatever. And for the fines, also the fines for the GDPR is way higher, up to 10 million euros or up to 20 million euros or 40%. And the CCPR is up to 7,500 per violation with no ceiling on the number of violations. So it can grow out of really large, really quick. And yeah, but it just starts way smaller. Yeah, and 100 to 750 dollars per consumer, which is affected per incident, which can be a lot of money if you think, for example, if it's a data breach from Google, for example. So large companies are really into some trouble if they have a large data breach out there. So those were now two examples of those legislation which we saw from companies. Feel free to dig into the site yourself and have a look at what is affected, how it is affected, what it means for your company or for yourself as a person. And if you're planning to do business within those companies, what this also means for you. There's also a framework by the OECD, which is basically the OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperations and Development, which a lot of companies are creating frameworks and are organizing and doing frameworks for development. So this one is the so-called Emerging Global Data Privacy Framework, where they have some principles laid out, which should ensure or that the company is basically privacy compliant. So what are the principles there? Maybe we can go through it one by one. The first one is the collection limitation, which means that basically the collection of personal information should be limited, as the name says, and it should be obtained only by lawful and fair means, and with the consent and knowledge of the individual upfront. Then also there is this data quality. Personal information should be relevant to the purpose for which it is collected and should be accurate, complete, and current as needed for that purpose. So basically, you should consent. You should know when your data is collected. You should consent into that. And you should know what kind of data is collected and for which purpose. And the purpose specification is the next one. The purpose for the collection of personal information should be disclosed before collection and upon any change to those purposes. And the information should be limited to those, and the use of the information should be limited to only to be used for that specific purposes outlined in the document. So that means, for example, if I collect data for your for login process and I have your email address and a password, I should not be using that email address for sending you marketing emails, for example, if I just say that it's only for the login purpose. So I would be not allowed to do that in that sense. I think a lot of companies are not aware of that, but it also depends on the country you are in, if that's a thing. For the GDPR, it's, by the way, a very apparent thing. Next one is the use limitation. Personal information should not be disclosed or otherwise used for other than a specific purpose without consent of the provincial or legal authority. Should not be disclosed, like not be shared anymore. You should not be going away and saying, okay, I have this list of 500 email addresses signed up. Do you want to buy that? don't sell data, don't share it, don't be transparent. Just be transparent about what data is collected, how it's collected, for what use, but don't share the data. Be safe with the data, basically. Security safeguards also refers to that the information then should be protected. It should not only be shared, it should also be protected with reasonable security safeguards. What that means is actually not that clear, but like state-of-the-art technology. So it's secure for unauthorized access, modification, disclosure, and so on. Openness. The public should also be informed about privacy policies and practices. That's where you see on the website the data privacy pages always, and individuals should have ready means of learning about the use of personal information. Individual participation, we can go through the next ones. Individuals should also have the rights to know about the collection of personal information, to access that information, to request correction, which I already outlined, that you should be asking the provider or the company, hey, what kind of data do you use? And if they, for example, tell you, okay, we are using this kind of data, and that data we do have stored, and you see some error, or you want it to be deleted, they have to do it. They cannot say, okay, you gave me the consent 2 months earlier, I want to use it now. No, the individual has the right to actually get it deleted. And then accountability, which means individuals controlling the collection or use of personal information should be accountable for taking steps to ensure the implementation of these principles, which means there is always one dedicated person in the company which feels responsible for doing that and is also accountable if those things are not implemented correctly. About obtaining consent, it was a huge challenge when we started our company first, because you need to be GDPR compliant, and it's really, really hard to get all the consent cookie banners and stuff like that. I think the user experience actually, it hurts the user experience on a lot of websites that you have so many cookie banners out there. But I just presented a few here, which, like, the website use cookies. I mean, you all know it probably when you go to websites. They all popped out in the EU companies after the GDPR, basically, where you had to implement them. I think a lot of them are actually incorrectly implemented, especially on smaller companies, but it's so hard to see how it's implemented. And I think there's much more awareness needed of, like, you cannot really check if it's correctly implemented. You can just do this cookie banner there, and then you click on it, allow all, but nothing is happening in the background. And it's so hard to check if that's the case or not. You can do that by looking at what kind of traffic is sent, what kind of cookies are set, and stuff like that. But I'm not sure a way if this is really, like, challenged by a lot of authorities right now, to be honest. All right, another challenge besides that is the potential for algorithmic bias, especially in the area of artificial intelligence systems. And I brought this example here. This is the American system for classification, or, like, it basically rates suspects, how likely they are to do some criminal actions. It's called Compass. And it's super biased. So, for example, on the left side, we have Dylan with a low risk of 3 and Bernard with a high risk of 10. And the prior offenses of Dylan was 2 armed robberies, 1 attempted armed robbery, with an actual subsequent offense of 1 grand theft. He's low risk. Oh, this is Vernon, actually, this is another guy. But he is low risk with 3, and on the right, Prisha, 4 juvenile misdemeanors, non-subsequent offenses, and is very much on a high risk. I mean, you probably can figure out a theme here where this bias is. It's just racial profiling a lot, which is super unfair and puts a lot of people in a place where they shouldn't be. We can see that on the right side as well. There's this James Rivoli, 1 domestic violence, aggravated assault, 1 grand theft, 1 petty theft, 1 drug trafficking, with 1 grand theft subsequent offenses. still low risk, and medium risk of 6, 1 petty theft, which also is the guy on the left, by the way, has also that, but with none subsequent offenses, and he's put at medium risk. So there is this racial bias in a lot of systems, and as we have this data laying around in all of the web, and the artificial intelligence is actually trained on that all kind of data, the AI system, it's not really the AI system to blame, it's us humans to blame, which are in a sense very biased in putting out data there. But we use that data to train systems, so the artificial intelligence systems are also very biased, and that's a huge concern for the future, and a challenge actually to solve as well. So we have here, after those challenges, now you have learned a bit more about that. There's this privacy impact assessment where organizations can actually run through and then basically identify and mitigate privacy risks. So what kind of steps can you actually do as a company to solve that? So this is this framework. So first of all, we identify the risk. So we review the corrective actions and derive new objectives. Then we classify by evaluating and describing the process operation. I think actually I should start at the identified. I think the order is not correct here. So identify would be identify the risk is the third point. Then classify, initiate the corrective actions to manage the risk. So first of all, we have to identify the risk. Then we initiate what kind of actions and classify what kind of risks are there and how can we actually tackle them. Then we review that by, first of all, we implement it and review all the stuff we have thought might be useful going forwards, and derive out of that some very tangible objectives which we want to achieve with that. And then in the last step, after development, we evaluate and describe the processing operation and check if the things which we wanted to achieve, if we achieved that as well. Sorry that I misordered them here. It should be identify as the first one, it's the third point. Yeah, so it's a very, very basic framework, but I think it helps to just go through those 4 steps. Okay, think about, okay, what kind of risks do we actually have? For example, I can go through my example as a software company. We could say, okay, what kind of data do we actually have? Where is it stored? So we know, okay, we have login credentials, for example, email addresses, we have passwords. We store some test cases in our application, which are related to this customer. So these test cases are not really that data privacy concerning, but email addresses are. So we also store names, first name, last names of people. So okay, so there we have like a touch point. We have email address, first name, last name. Okay, so now we have identified our risks. Now we can classify them. How critical are those information? So it's not really a banking number or anything which could directly hurt something. So it's still privacy concerning, it still falls under the GDPR. So we need to make sure it's sure. But it's like if it's lost, we couldn't be sued like all over the place. But we should be aware of it because email addresses, names are still like stuff which can be used for identifying people. So we know, okay, we have to take action, but maybe not like top priority, but high priority. Then how do we want to tackle this? We need a system to implement that. So what kind of options do we have? Are we using a third-party authorization system where we basically outsource our whole management of handling that data? Might be a good thing. Maybe they are completely GDPR compliant is one option. Other thing is we implement it ourselves. We have limited resources. We are a small company. So yeah, probably go with outsourcing using a third-party solution because it's very hard to tackle. So we can implement that. And then after development, we can test on that. So we can actually check in, okay, how is this third-party solution storing data? What are they doing there? Is everything correctly implemented? And then we are GDPR compliant. on that system, and we have implemented the correct measures to tackle that risk. Before that, there was also privacy by design mentioned, which is basically in the GDPR, it's outlined there that you should be implementing privacy by design, which means just by like building the system, you should be already thinking about like how to handle privacy there. There are 7 principles. In general, I want to go over them real quick. So there is, first of all, should handle proactively, not reactively, which means you shouldn't wait until a data breach is happening and then start implementing stuff. You should actually be thinking, okay, what kind of data breaches could occur in the future, and then preemptively like make sure that they don't happen. Privacy, the second one is privacy as a default setting, which means privacy should be there all times. It should be set to default that it's on with opt-in or opt-out. Privacy embedded into design, also same thing. You should have a solution where it's basically embedded into your core principles of your architecture. Next one, positive sum, not negative sum. This means it should be considered like negative sum means basically you're thinking of privacy. Okay, I have to take some trade-offs. Positive sum means there should be no trade-offs while implementing your privacy system or how you want to handle this data. It should be immediately clear that you don't have to do trade-offs with your other architecture decisions or other things in there. End-to-end security, where it can occur, means you should have like a clear understanding of the end-to-end workflow from like where comes the data in, how is it processed, and where it's stored. And this whole system, this whole workflow of like data processing should be secured from like first touch point to like really end touch point. Then also visibility and transparency, be transparent about how you design your system, how you store data, how it's used. And then 7, respect for user privacy. Don't take it on the light side, just be aware like what this means for your users. Users are giving you their data and they trust you that you handle it correctly and don't just throw it around. It's really hurting your business and it's also not compliant with all the stuff outlined. About sharing. So secure and transparent data sharing, just a few words on that. If you look at current organization structures, we have down there a typical system which could be outlined within a business. Like what kind of touch points are there for data? First of all, there's data sources, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, stuff where you actually store the stuff. Then there's the data domain. What kind of data is there actually stored? There can be sales data, customers data. There can be marketing data, there can be HR data, finance data, and so on. And then who is sharing that data which is there, who is using that within the organizations, can be different teams. Can be the sales team, support team, marketing team, HR team, or finance team. For example, here, marketing team probably needs data to sales data, also the finance team probably, because they want to know like how much revenue are we doing. And then how do we share this? It can be business intelligence, usage dashboards, which are internally data science email campaigns. If you, for example, have to opt in, have some email address which you can use for that, or for revenue projections, which are coming out of this specific department then. So that's like laying out the workflow a bit to see where is it stored. Actually, I think it's a good habit to actually do this as a company to see like, okay, what kind of data storage system do I have in place? What kind of data is stored? How can I cluster it? In which domains? And then see where do I use it? What kind of dashboards? Which team needs access to what dashboard? Maybe restrict access there. So it can be shared accordingly internally and externally, and you have a complete outline of the project. Also, a need for AI principle arises with all this AI stuff I talked. a lot about that. That's almost before I'm done with my talk. One of the last points. There is this AI Google principle and the OECD, the AI principles. They just occurred because with all the ChatGPT stuff, there is a need for that. Maybe we can jump into one. I hope my sharing works again. Yeah, I think you should be seeing it now. What does Google, for example, tell you when you look at their AI principle? Google aspires to create technologies that solve important problems and help people in their daily lives. We are optimistic about the incredible potential of AI. But what do they actually have? They actually say be socially beneficial, avoid creating or reinforcing unfair bias. It's the thing which I talked about, a system which is trained on a lot of data, which is like privacy concerning maybe. Be built and tested for safety, be accountable to people, incorporate privacy design principle. Here you go. Uphold high standards of scientific excellence and be made available for use that accord with these principles. So they clearly state how they will develop the system and that they are aware of the privacy concerns, which there are, and how they handle it. You can have a look for yourself what's actually outlined there. Maybe as a second factor here, the OECD AI principles are pretty similar to that. So they are robustness, secure, transparent, human-centered values, accountability, very important. Maybe we can jump in there. And then, yeah, so there's also another map, which I'm just seeing here, which initiatives are related to AI policies. I think it's a very new topic coming up, and there will be a lot happening in the future. So keep an eye out on that. What kind of policies are there? And maybe read through them a bit. There's a lot of stuff happening. All right, so. And now we're basically done with the talk. So maybe to summarize what I pointed out here is our world is changing and data privacy needs to adapt as well. I think the regulations which are showed is like they take long to implement. They are needed. Sometimes innovation moves faster than actually the data privacy regulations, but yeah, let's see how it all will evolve. What you should have learned is that innovation is a key driver of economic value, and data privacy is a key area of interest, but very challenging to implement. I hope you've got some indications how it can be implemented and how the regulations are outlined there. And that there also are organizations need to feel responsible for handling user data, that there is awareness out there, and especially with all the AI systems coming up and IoT devices and stuff like that, that we need to be more aware of that data and be more transparent of how we use customer data and share that. That would be it from my side. I'm happy to answer any questions which might occur.
Thank you, Jonas. That was such an insightful presentation. I believe all our participants have gained a lot of knowledge through this. You can connect with Jonas as well. His email is shared on the screen right here. And we have also shared his LinkedIn on the chat box. We can go ahead and start the Q&A session now. You can feel free to make use of the chat box. You can leave your questions on the chat box here, and the speaker can respond to your question accordingly. Jonas, is it all right if I take over the screen now?
Yeah, sure. So there is a question, what are ethical considerations surrounding the use of personal, okay, so where's my chat disappeared? Oh, here, okay. What are ethical considerations surrounding the use of personal data in the development of new technologies, and how can organizations balance these with the business goals? Very interesting question, because I don't think there's a very clear answer to that. There is, for example, on the AI teams at Google and Microsoft, there is this huge discussion going on. They have ethical teams within their teams, which they're like using exactly handling that question. How can we ensure that it's not going out of place? I think there needs some kind of human loop in the feedback. Like there needs to be some human in the loop in the development of the system, which can tell, okay, this is according to plan, this is not according to plan. But then the other question arises, who are these humans? Are they users? Maybe they are biased even as well. So I think it's still up for challenges. The current developments are a bit frightening because right now it's more about who can get to market the fastest. And a lot of companies actually ditch the ethical teams right now. They say, okay, we need to be the first, so we don't care about that and think about it later, which can be dangerous, in my opinion. Okay, next question. Have you seen the privacy around the globe as it's EU, UA, other are trying to cover their part and their data? Do you see any possibility of universal law for the same? I see the EU is like doing a lot of stuff there. The US as well. I don't see a global law coming up. I think maybe it's more on the different kind of regions of the world, but I'm not too much informed about UA or India or the eastern regions, how they are handling it. But with all the political change and the ongoing or would you say it's differences between some companies? I'm not seeing a global data privacy law happening anytime soon, unfortunately. Jonas, how do you see opportunities in data protection and GRC field? GRC. GRC. Can you help me with GRC? I'm not sure what this means actually. Maybe I'm a bit. Maybe you can help me out and just tell me what GRC means. In the meantime, I can move on to the next question. How can we balance the benefits of new and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things with the potential risks? Governance, risk, compliance. Okay, 1 second. And the Internet of Things with the potential risks to personal data privacy and security. I think by implementing clear goals or frameworks which everyone is aware of and everyone commits to, I think that's the first step. So I think like outlining those kind of frameworks where we define how privacy or data should be handled is a very nice first step of actually trying to build systems and then has this as a baseline and then just develop on top. I think that's a better approach, like have the privacy first principle where it's also like privacy by design. It's kind of the same thing that you try to always have this baseline of protection and then try to build on top. And I think it's like not a trade-off. I think actually you can have the same benefits. It's just a designing or an architectural question how we want to design systems in the future. And that we are aware that there are data privacy risks and that we make sure just by design that there won't be any breaches. And now, Jonas, how do you see opportunities in data protection and the governance, risk, and compliance? I'm not sure if I get the question correctly. So what kind of opportunities? I mean, there is a new area evolving. I think there might be new roles, for example, the GDPR role where people are basically just like full-time going into compliance and checking if data privacy is correctly implemented and stuff like that. I think there will be new roles implemented in companies which only handle that. And also with the new AI technologies, I think there will be teams which will cover those topics especially and make sure. And I think it's a very important part of the company, especially when users realize what kind of data is used and how their personal stuff is affected. I think you would rather go to a company which is aware of that and has a specific team in-house who covers all those kind of topics instead of going to a company which you feel like your data is not secure. Next one, with ChatGPT around, do we need to have privacy policy around this? Yeah, so that's one classical point. I think there should be a privacy policy around this, but the one who would implement this is actually the government. And they move slower, and the AI race is really fast. They are developing a lot of stuff really quickly. So let's see how it's handling. There was now this petition where they signed basically, okay, we want to pause. A lot of tech leaders signed like a document where they said, we want to pause in the AI development. It's going too fast. We need to check if it's really regulated and everything correct. Might be needed, not sure, but definitely someone should think about it. I'm not sure if we can leave it to the companies right now. I think they are more concerned that they are who is the first making the most progress. So Italy, for example, they stepped in and said, okay, it's banned now. Maybe more will do that. On the other side, innovation will lose as well. So I think it's a balancing act. It's really hard to tackle. So far, we are technology first and regulations later. Should we now have regulations first and technology later? It's also going the same direction. I think it's not the or question. I think we need both technology first and regulations. I think there must be a better way to collaborate better. Right now, it's technologies, then someone regulates stuff, then technology tries to go around that, then it's again regulations. I think that just needs a common ground understanding of what data actually means for a user, and that the user can actually benefit from that. And there must be a way to outline a way to combine those approaches so we can develop side by side instead of like always going in a sequential manner of like regulations and innovation, which is currently the case. But I'm not sure if this will happen, to be honest, in the future. Do a list of checklists to maintain in data to reach compliance by considering data privacy. We don't have a concrete list. So what we do is basically we check what kind of data is stored. There's a document which we give to each customer, which basically outlines what kind of data is stored for what purpose. And we do have, it's not really a checklist, but we go through each data point accordingly and check where and see in this document where it's stored, how it's stored, and if we need to measure on that. One common thing is some companies, we're not allowed to store data on American servers. So we check exactly, okay, which company is running on which server, and we explicitly say, okay, we only use German servers, for example. So we know there's no way for American companies or authorities to access the data. It's stored within Germany, basically. Okay, so there was one comment, penalty on data privacy. Yeah, I think this is, I'm not sure penalty, if it's the right thing. With the GDPR, it's not working that great. I think only large companies receive penalties right now, smaller companies not. I think there just needs a better way to incentivize companies to actually care about data privacy. Maybe also with some bonus points, I don't know, some tax stuff if you are aware of that problem. I'm not sure what the correct measure is. There's still so much happening in the space that it's really like every day is something new coming out. Right, I think those are all questions. Are there any more?
If there are any more questions, please feel free to leave them on the chat box. We still have a few minutes left to take more questions. Great.
There's one more comment. GDPR is working great in case of consultancies, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so for consultancies, I think yes, GDPR is not that bad, to be honest. Yeah, it's just like that for example, for our company, we are not aware of lack of small startups, but maybe that's also not the focus, and not like the biggest data breaches can happen if there's only a company with 50 people and a few thousand users or so. Okay, there's another question. How can organizations ensure compliance with data protection regulations such as GDPR when using new and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning? Yes, very good question. So basically, as I outlined, you should be looking at those systems and be asking yourself, okay, what kind of data is needed to train that system? In the case of artificial intelligence, where is this data coming from? Where is it stored? Where is it processed? And then go through that list and check if it's compliant with the current regulations which are outlined. So is it stored within the EU? Is it somewhere else? What kind of data is stored there? How is it processed? Who can access it actually? And if you lay out this whole list, you can see like what kind of consent do you need from users before they use your system. Do you want to actually do that? Is it actually allowed to share the data and processes? For example, for large enterprises in Germany, it's not possible to use ChatGPT just because it's like running somewhere they don't know.
All right. There's a question by a person asking about recording of the session. We will be publishing the recording of the session on our YouTube channel. So I do request you to please follow us on our LinkedIn so that you can have, you will be alerted when the recording is out. There's another question by Mujib here.
Yep. Yeah, how GDPR rule and data protection affects our business depends on where you're doing business. So if you are doing business within the EU and are collecting data there, you are affected by the GDPR. So which means you can be fined even if you're not a EU company, but you're doing just business there. You can be fined for not being like compliant with the GDPR rules and acts. And other than that, I showed this page where you can see like the list of companies. There you can go through each one of that and see like, okay, in what countries am I active? What kind of data privacy acts are in place there, and what do I have to do with that? There's another one. So what about, where is my chat now? What about PIMS? What exactly is PIMS? Sorry, I'm not that good with abbreviations, to be honest. Maybe you can help me there. As the privacy challenges are evolving, what are initial 3 actions that organizations must take now? Yeah, I would say like still check what kind of data are you processing? What kind of data are you storing? Where is this? Okay, privacy information. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so back to the challenges. What are 3 initial actions? First, I would say outline what kind of data are you using it? Then where is the data stored? And how are you making sure, what are the concrete measures that this data won't be breached? So I think that's like 3 actions you can directly take. So, okay, go into your system. What is stored? Where is it stored? Is it critical? And what can we do if there's no system for that in place? Yeah, and what about privacy information management system? I think you're referring that more larger companies have in place. Actually, I'm not that informed about how they all work and what kind of stuff is in there. Basically, what I know from it is that a system that helps you control your personal data and helps you to know what is stored and where is stored and manage it. But I don't have like any, like, what do you know about that specifically? How it affects, how GDPR affects that? I think it's just a system which helps you to be compliant basically to those systems. So I don't think there's any action to do from that side.
Sorry, Jonas, to cut you off here.
Yeah.
We are a little out of time, so maybe we can
Okay.
take one more question from the already posted questions there, and we can end the Q&A there.
Okay, so maybe next one, until there's no privacy bill passed in India, what is the best way to maintain privacy out there? Maybe you have a look at all the companies where you have, just make a list of all the companies where you have your data stored or where you have like logins and stuff like that and private data installed, and go to their website and check how they handle the privacy. If there's nothing outlined, how they do it, maybe it's maybe you can try to get information about it by contacting them and see like how it is. And if you try to use a new service, maybe get information about how they use data, how they use your private data in advance, and see if they have some document about that before you actually type in your personal data there. All right, I think that's it.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much, Jonas. The questions were amazing, and the way you explained it was excellent. Thank you so much, and apologies to those who we could not take the questions for, as we are running out of time. So you can still get in touch with our speaker on LinkedIn. We have shared his profile link on the chat box, and also you can make use of our group, our LinkedIn group, where you can discuss more about the topic. And if you have questions to discuss, you can discuss it with other participants as well on the group itself. We will share the link on the chat box. So before I go ahead with the quiz, Jonas, I'd like to ask you if you have any closing remark to your presentation.
Much just like maybe be aware of what kind of data you share out there with what system, and then maybe think about how you want to change it in the future or not.
Great. Thank you so much again. All right, so we'll begin with the polls now. The polls will appear on your screen. You have 1 minute to answer. I've just launched the first poll is out there. You can answer, you can select your answer, and you'll have 1 minute to answer that. There are 5 questions in total, so make your choice carefully. We have a $400 worth exam voucher on the line, so you could be the lucky winner to receive that. We will shortly be announcing the winners for yesterday's quiz as well, so do stay with us to learn about the winner. I hope everyone is able to see the poll on your screen. If not, do let me know. The next question will be out soon. Thanks to all that are participating, and thanks to all who have participated yesterday as well. We will have this quiz on each of our sessions till the last day. So you can you can participate and grab the chance to win the certification from GSDC. We have 2 more questions to go. Do put in your answer if you haven't done it yet. We will be announcing the winner of yesterday's quiz in a short while, right after this quiz. So please stay with us. Thank you for participating, everyone. This is the last question, and we will end this in a minute to select your answer and grab the chance to be the lucky winner. Just an information to all of you that we do have multiple winners in each session. So we do a lucky draw for the multiple winners. So do keep in mind that the winners that we choose are being selected through a lucky draw from the team itself. All right, that's the end of the quiz. Thank you so much to all who have participated. We will announce the winner tomorrow for this quiz. And without wasting more time, I will call upon Shobita from IQA team to announce the winner for yesterday's quiz round. Yes, Shobita, if you are there, you can unmute yourself and do the honors. Yes, Shobita, you can unmute yourself and announce the winner for yesterday's quiz.
Hello, am I audible and
Yes.
visible?
We can hear you. We cannot
Okay.
see you though.
No problem. Just congratulations to all the participants, because it was really difficult, doing the identifying who's the winner for it. There are multiple winners, as Setulu has mentioned. It's a lucky draw, and from the lucky draw, we have Akshay Patil as the winner for the session for the quiz of yesterday. Congratulations, Akshay Patil.
Congratulations, Akshay. I hope you are there. Okay, yes, he is there. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you, Shobita, for the announcement. Do you have anything else to say?
Thanks, team. It's been wonderful listening into the experts speaking. Continue the momentum and request all your friends and colleagues also to join into these sessions, because they are not only knowledgeable, but they also help us in the Q&A session when we ask questions and get them clarified. They help improve our knowledge on what's happening around. So please join in and request complete participation and involvement in this. Also join into the IQA site and gather further information in terms of how we can benefit each other. Thanks, everybody. Thanks a lot, Setulu, for helping us out.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Shobita. It's been a pleasure. And do check out IQA website. The link will be shared on the chat box. And a very big congratulations to Akshay. You can get in touch with us on LinkedIn. So the link will be shared on the chat box. You can directly get in touch with us there. We will also get in touch with you regarding the prize distribution. So you will be receiving $400 worth exam voucher of Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. So you can quickly get in touch with us and we will distribute it. For tomorrow, we will be having another amazing speaker, that is Immaculada Alarcon-Torres. She will be speaking on the topic of impact of quality on leadership, organizational skills, excellence, and inclusion. So she will be presenting at the same time, and you can join through the same link. So I do request everyone to please join again on our next session. We will have another quiz there, so you can take your chance to win the exam voucher. Do share the link with your network as well. The registrations are still open and it's still free for all. Do join our LinkedIn groups as well to share more knowledge, to discuss more about the sessions. If you have missed out on answering and having your questions answered, if you have more questions, then you can leave your questions there and have more discussion with the participants. Also, you can connect with our speaker as well on LinkedIn. So yes, one more thing before we end. We will be sharing the feedback form for today's session. I do request each and everyone to please take just a minute of your time to share your valuable feedbacks. It's really helpful for the team to organize such events. So yes, the link will be shared on the chat box. Please do have a look. And we, all the team, IQA team, GSDC team, we all look forward to seeing all of you again tomorrow for another great session. So until we see you all tomorrow, I wish everyone have a great day, great evening, wherever you are. Please take care of yourself and yes, have a wonderful time ahead. Thank you, everyone.